Good morning. The fact that you're sitting here, it means that the God force is already inside you because your body is alive, you're breathing, your heart is beating. So some sort of a life force is active right now in your body. We can say that the greatest force of the world, the same force that's making this river run, is running through your veins because you're alive. I'm saying this to give you some assurance. So to begin with, at the beginning of this talk, because you're vertical and because you're alive, it means that the most powerful force of life is running through you. Now we have the question of courage, Are you courageous enough to stay with your spiritual journey and to take yourself to greater and greater happiness? Well, the fact that you're sitting in a workshop, the fact that you've worked on yourself for years and months means that you're already courageous. Why? Because there's a certain layer of you that has motivated you to work on yourself. I mean, even this workshop aside, before we even met, you were working on yourself to become a more whole person. Therefore, the question of courage is irrelevant because you're already courageous. Why? Because you're sitting right in front of me. And every day you're meditating. And you're reading some books of psychology and wellness and spirituality. So it's not a question of courage. So far in this talk, we're saying within your veins, you're carrying the God force because you're alive. Secondly, you're already courageous because you're here, you're working on yourself, you're meditating, you're learning, you're wanting to become a greater person. So this makes you a spiritual warrior at heart already. And there's another thing you can ask yourself. If you're seeking a more whole version of yourself, why would you ever do that? In other words, if we ask a Martian, do you want to go to a meditation workshop to find a higher self? If that Martian doesn't know what a higher self is, then a workshop would make no sense. Meaning, you're only motivated to do something if you suspect that something is there. You're here because you suspect that a greater version of you might be available, or else you wouldn't be here. Like all these love songs they've written in the history of the world, we have hundreds of thousands of love songs on the radio. Why does everybody keep writing love songs? So if love didn't exist, we wouldn't have 250,000 love songs. It must exist, that's why people are writing about it. And you're here because you already know that you have a higher self. I doubt that you would be here for 5 days chasing some shadow that nobody's ever seen and that you don't feel you don't have, that you feel that you don't have. You already feel that you have a higher self. I'm being very pragmatic here. So let's review. There is something keeping you alive. There is something making your heart beat. Therefore, the God force is already within you, keeping you alive. Number 2, you're already courageous. You're already a warrior because you're here working on yourself, and you have worked on yourself many, many months before this. Number 3, you're seeking a more complete, happier version of yourself. If you felt that that was absolute theory, you would never expend this much energy. You strongly suspect that there's already part of you under your skin that is calm, centered, wise, and ignoring the craziness of the crazy mind. Everybody has a crazy mind. Everybody has a centered, wise mind. Last night, I talked about the center of you. See, when you do this, or when you do this, and you feel your heartbeat, this is the center of you. The center of you is your essence, your natural talents. If I asked your children, what is daddy like? Your children would be able to tell me the unchanging traits and characteristics of you. And this morning I'm saying, be very, very happy about two things at least. Number one, the most powerful force of nature, being the God force, is already inside you because you're alive. You should be very happy about that because it's the same force that's making this river run. So you have a very powerful force running inside you. Number two, be very, very happy that you have a center. You put your hand here and you realize at your center is where you have your values. You have some traits that are unchanging. If I ask your children, what is mommy like? One of your children may say, very protective and always kind towards me. That's yourself. Be happy that you have a self, because no matter how heavy the traffic gets, no matter how crazy the people of the world become, no matter how many missiles the North Koreans send up, you have a self. As long as you have a central self, you should not be worried. I'm going to give you an exercise. On any moment or day that you get really stressed out, just put a hand in the center of your body and just recite a mantra like Om. When you recite Om, you're reciting the primordial sound of the vibration of the God force all around the cosmos. Om has been introduced to us by Mother India, but Om is a primordial vibration of the movement of the God force. So when your life gets hectic, just put a hand the center of your heart, breathe into it with the sound of Om. So with that one act, you're bringing in the voice of the God force, and you're also connecting to the center of yourself. Even if somebody's standing in front of a firing squad and they just get in touch with the fact that I have a self, immediately you're empowered. Because without a self, you have nothing. So when that crazy mind starts to take you further away, then you've lost the self. You just come back to the self. The question comes up, why do we even have a crazy mind 5 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day? What is that? The ancient scriptures of India, the Vedas, say that the God force is so creative. The God force created these bushes, created the river, created the jasmine and the geranium. The God force is infinitely, endlessly creative. If you put yourself in the place of God, if you had the power to create, I don't know, 5,050 different types of flowers, if you had that power, why would you not continue creating? You can do anything. You can create anything. If you're that creative, my hunch is, then you would be playful. Put yourself in the place of the God force. You wouldn't want to be lonely up in the skies, just oming by yourself. You can do anything you want. So if you can do anything you want, you create as the God force, you create the center of the self, and then you create this joker called the ego that drives your mind crazy once in a while. So the ancient scriptures say, look, you have this ego that creates chaos once in a while, And that's only there because the God force is playful. So, hearing this talk, for a moment, you might get really angry. It's like we have this beautiful river, we have geese flying above, we have some happy folks in a 5-day workshop. Why in the world would the God force create ego and an unstable, moody mind once in a while? Why? And the answer the Vedantas give you is very, very cool in a sense. The answer they give you is you already have God inside you, your heart is already beating, you have a central self with unchanging values, unchanging talents, so everything is fine. Everything is already fine. And then because you contain the God force just adds in a little more playfulness. So the God force says, let me also give you a little devil of a playful mind, and once in a while this mind goes to a corporate meeting and it gets anxious. So now you have 3 layers. You have God running through your veins, you have a central self with courage, values, inborn talents, and then you have this little fly. It's the ego with the first name, last name, the Mercedes, gets stuck in traffic and gets anxious. So then play with it. I mean, if you are the God force, why can't you be playful? If the God force creates geraniums and rose bushes, why can't you have a moody side and a central self? Why so serious? See, if you were to believe me as a friend, that the God force wants to create both geranium and the rose, both the stable mind and the ego. And what's the challenge here? Very simple. The challenge is, if you happen to get moody once in a while, or if you always turn excellent work over to your boss, but you continuously doubt the quality of your professional work, say, all right, that's the game that the God force within me is playing. In other words, the God force has given me life, Om. The God force has given me a center, which is my courage, my value, my children, my inborn talents, and then the God force has given me a few moods, like the sky gets some clouds. Here's your challenge. Your challenge is, when the mood comes, when the mind starts behaving in a crazy way, just remember who you are. It's as simple as that. So you start getting nervous in traffic. I have a self. You're still stuck in traffic, but I have a self. As long as I have a central self, I have a set of values. I love my family. I love my work. I love my geranium plant. I am a unique self. I have inborn talents. I have inspiration. I have creativity. Nobody in my entire city is exactly like me. That's it. So here's the mood. You realize that you're in the mood. Bring the breath right to the center of the heart. Your center will never disappear. The question is, what happens when I die? Nothing much. I mean, the physical cage around your center drops. But all of you have a soul. If I speak to a mother who has 2 little ones, she said to me at breakfast time that each one of her 2 little ones was born with a different soul. So here we have 2 little daughters. The moment they appeared in their bodies, they already had 2 different souls. So it's the quality of their soul that doesn't disappear with death. So in this talk, I'm bringing everything together, because we've had talks about, ooh, what are we going to do? So much psychological talent needed to stabilize myself when I'm in those moods, fears, and anxieties. And then we had another talk about the God force. How do I ever connect with the God force forever? And then we had a third talk last night about, do I have a center? Do I have some inborn talents? Do I have unique fingerprints? Who is the center of me? Which is the part of me that hasn't changed in 25 years? If I ask my little daughter, who is mommy? What would my daughter say? So you see, this talk is bringing all three of these together. You are standing vertically. That tells me you're alive. Why are you alive? Because you're breathing in life. And something is making your heart pump beyond the stem cell, beyond the DNA, beyond the muscles of the heart. Something is giving your heart the reflex to beat. And there's something coming in you beyond oxygen that's keeping you alive. So that takes care of the fact that you are constantly accompanied by God. I'm not even a religious man. I'm saying, because you're standing vertically, we already know that the same force that's driving this river is keeping your body vertical. So be happy, because you're alive. Number two, every single person here has uniquenesses. All we got to do is ask your children. We can ask your dog. Your dog knows who you are, because your dog loves you, because of your qualities. Your dog can smell your qualities. If another person walks into the room, the dog knows the difference. It's not just smell, it's your soul. Your cat is very sensitive to your soul. This is why cats insist on coming into the room when you're meditating. They can pick up on your vibes. If any single one of you, there's 11 of you, maybe 12 of you sitting in front of me, if one single person gets up and leaves right now, we immediately, all of us, feel the vacuum. This is guaranteed. Every single one of you is bringing something unique to this small gathering. If you suddenly get up and leave, we'll know that some quality just left. So be happy. Here's the end of this talk. You have God inside you, keeping you alive. So that's as powerful as the force that's making this river flow. Number two, be happy because you have a center. Your center are your inborn talents, the tone of your voice, your unique fingerprints, your inspiration, your creativity, your problem solving. All of this is unique to you. That's the center of yourself. And then you have this little buzzing fly. It's the ego that gets off on some good moods, bad moods, medium moods. It's like a fly that's hovering around the planet self. So what happens when I go off balance? Bring in the God force right into the center of yourself. And the little fly says, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. I have a center, thank you. So now I'm going to quiet down. That's the end of this talk. God bless.